Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Olumide Kayode Omosebi. My sound effect.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. The people are happy. The people are glad. People vote for me when I come to run for president because I brought your desires to pass.
Good morning, everybody.
My goodness.
Also good to be here. I think this was
oh my god,
a prank, Abby.
It was a prank. I mean, he's been here all along. We've planned this. In fact, it was supposed to happen before now, but because I wasn't around last week, we didn't do it. I mean, excitement is coming in on WhatsApp. I'm seeing the excited emojis, excited cheers. Someone is T-Jazz is like, yes, 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 as if you just won lottery.
I can't stay away. Someone sent me a message during the week and said, Barrister, I know where you live. I said, it's not hitting now.
Somebody said that they will not forgive me. It's not me. It's not see how you made me type long speech. I'm sorry. It's all love. It's all love. I'm sure we put a smile on your face this morning, and that's really what it was about. Okay. But without further ado, let's get into the conversation so that we can have a good show this morning, and you can join the conversation. Luna, I'm going to be strict on time to deal.
Yeah, so we have to.
Let's do the introduction, sharp.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It was just, sorry, I think we had to laugh a little this morning. Thank you for tuning in to join us every Saturday. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. Thank you, Mimi, for always being here. My voice is a little cracked, so please endure with me. I want to thank those who reached out to me over the week as regards to our guest last week. That's Madam Justina, who lost her sight to the schemes of her husband in an episode of malice. I have warned men and women whose spouses are jealous of their achievement or success to leave before you are grounded permanently. Every woman whose husband refuses you to work, I always tell you, they refuse you to do anything better for yourself or earn money. This is called economic or financial abuse, and this is a crime under the Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Act of 2015, Section 12, subsection 1. If anything were to happen to your husband, God forbid, how would it be for you and your children where he is no longer around? It's almost like preparing yourself for eventual poverty. We don't know who would go first, but should he or should something happen to his job, or should he fall ill, have something that he grounds him that he cannot work, then what will happen to you and the children? You must work. You must have a source of income. Any man that tells you, or any woman that forbids the man or tries to hamper or jealous or malicious at their success, you are not a helper. You are a killer, because you are supposed to help the person get better and achieve their full potential. Instead, you get envious, you get malicious to the extent of what we saw last week, which the man went all through his means to make sure the wife got blind just while she was given a double promotion and made the manager, the country manager of a multinational pharmaceutical company. Very sad. I wasn't really happy with the response to Madam Tina's competition, when she didn't ask for help. She said she has a job, she's working, she'll be fine. But I just couldn't. It was too much for me. Losing the sight was just too much for me. That was why I, on my own, said, people, let us reach out to her. So let's move into today. Thinking about 2022. My voice.
Sorry.
Sorry.
If you need a break, just signal.
I would say now. Thinking of 2022 and the cases, the domestic violence and abuse, the lives we lost, what are the lessons of 2022? What have we learned so far? Then what more especially have I learned so far? I told you last week that 2022 has been a year of malice. a year where people understand eventually that you must not marry malicious people, people who don't forgive easily, spouses who are threatened by the progress and success of their partners and will become abusive and violent because the other is doing well, or a deep-seated grudge against their spouses. Today I want to talk about two major issues that have been rocking 2022. Truth be told, this has been from even before 2022, but it became an issue. I should discuss the fact that a lot of people come from broken homes. This has become a reason for a lot of people to remain in domestic violence and abuse because of the fact that your parents were separated or divorced, or the fact that you are, well, it's from a broken home, whichever way. So you stay in an abusive marriage. Why? Because you do not want to be labeled or described by the misfortunes of your parents. So you endure and keep yourself battered and bruised for the sins and mistakes of your parents. Second are those whose siblings are separated as well. Some would say, my brother is in a broken marriage, my sisters are in a broken family, a broken marriage, and they're back to our family house. I don't want to be like them. So you stay and endure abuse. Ladies and gentlemen, it even gets worse when one misguided pastor or prophet or spiritualist comes to you and from one mountain and spiritualizes the situation, telling you that there is a household curse or a generational curse on your family, that none of you will remain or stay in the matrimonial home.
All right, I'm so sorry to quench your fire, but we need to take a break.
Well, I was talking about those who come from broken homes and those who their siblings as well are not doing well in their matrimonial homes, especially those that come from families where one is separated, parents are separated, they call them the broken home. And then to worsen it, some spiritualists or pastor or prophet from one mountain or one valley will come and tell you there's a household curse on you or a generational curse on your family, that all of you will not stay in the matrimonial home unless you do this, unless you do that. So you start praying that God should break the generational curse while you stay there in your abusive marriage because you are praying for a generational problem. Ladies and gentlemen, your parents met each other before you were born and they had you, but their problem was that they did not know how to choose. Neither your dad or mom, either your dad or mom became abusive and fights happened and they both separated. Or the more prevailing fact that almost 50% of our parents married because of pregnancy, not that it was full, how would I put it? It was a decision, but it was not a plain decision. It was pressure from pregnancy. And if the pregnancy was not there, a lot of them would not have married each other. The other 32% were married because somebody recommended them to their spouse. A lot of our parents married based on recommendation, family recommendation, introduction, and they never dated, they never knew the character of who they were getting married to, but they just married because as then it was the culture that, okay, you are looking for a wife, we will help look for in the village or in the city, or there's this particular girl. They introduced them, they get married, they didn't date, and in marriage they started seeing things that if they had seen before they married, they wouldn't have married. You hear them say things like, if I had known you were like this, I would never have married you. I did not know you were like this. The other 29% married because they believe God told them this was their wife or their husband by one pastor or prophet, which is in this program, we have been able to show you conclusively that from Genesis to Revelations, God never told anybody this is your husband or this is your wife. So our parents had their own issues. And you are not responsible for the problems of your parents or your siblings. Everybody made their choice. The problem is that your parents, because they had issues, were not able to teach you how to choose. So you ended up repeating the mistakes of your parents. And that is a problem. It was a problem of choice, not a curse. Your parents made their mistake before you were born, so you cannot be held accountable or made to bear the torment of their failure. Some spouses would even abuse you, that just like your mother, who could not sit down in her father's house, like your sister or like your brother, who is, from one woman to the other. It is not you. They made their own mistakes. I make my mistake. And the problem with mistakes is that we do not learn from mistakes because we do not view it in terms of mistakes. We see it in terms of spirituality. When a man falls, he rises and looks at what makes him fall. But here, a man would fall and then go to church and pray that this fall, God remove it. But you were supposed to learn a lesson and teach your children not to make the mistakes of their father. That is what I always tell my son. I said, you have to be better than your father. It is impossible. In fact, it will cause a generational fight if I am better than my son. He has to be better than me. He has to be a better version. So I keep hitting him in his head that you have to be better than your father. You cannot repeat my mistakes. I made a mistake. I was a single father. You cannot grow up and now do the same thing, have children outside wedlock like your own father. It was wrong. So this is the thing we teach our children, so they do not repeat our mistakes, but not to be judged by the mistakes of your parents. Listen, children are doomed to repeat the mistakes of their parents when that learning process is removed. You ought to teach. That is why we tell people to take children away from abusive marriages. You need to separate and take them. Why? Because you are going to affect them in future. They are doomed to repeat your mistakes because all they see is fighting, is beatings, it is abuses, it is malice. All they see. So they grow up with the potential, full potential for abuse. There is a Yoruba proverb that says, when you raise people in abuse, they grow up to become abusive. It is just funny you make the same mistakes because your parents made the same mistake and they did not teach you the errors of their way, but found a way to blame it on the devil or supernatural phenomena. I don't know if I have mentioned about a divorce clinic that I had where there were 85 women present. 81 of the 85, when asked how they got married, said it was God who told them to marry their husbands, how they prayed and how it was confirmed on the mountain or by a man of God. So that day, that singular day, God became the singular cause of failed marriages in that room. Some would always find something to blame. Instead of opening their eyes, watch and pray, they say, well, it was God that told you. You are not your parents, neither are you your sisters or your brother. You make your own mistakes and you take responsibility for only your mistakes. You chose wrong because you did not know better. Now you know better. Abuse and violence at home can kill you. Leave that abusive man, leave that abusive woman, even though they use it to abuse you, saying that's how your mother was. It is their problem. But I will not die my mother's death. I will not die my father's death. Tell them to go and ask your mother why. It's none of your business. Go and tell them to ask your father why. It's none of your business. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know that I also come from a broken home?
Tell us that story.
I came from a broken home. I come from a broken home. When I graduated from the university, as I graduated, my father packed his bags and left home. he just packed and left before I got home. And nobody knew where he went to. So I was shuttling between the University of Ibadan and Lagos, clearance and all that. When one day I came back and I saw his car along Habad Macaulay Way in Yaba. And I followed the car, followed it as it went through Cemetery Road to, was it Kano Street or something like that in Ibotemeta. And I followed it, it parked in a house. It was a 4-story building with a penthouse on top. I waited as they were entering, I climbed. I didn't see my father, I saw his driver and 1 or 2 people. So I followed, I climbed to the top. As they entered the flat, I waited for about a minute. I knocked on the door, some lady opened, and I just burst in. And I saw my dad, and he sat and he looked at me and put his face down. And he said, I did not want you to find out this way. I wanted to call you so that we'll have a talk. And I was like, how can you just up and leave like that without... He said, I only stayed because of you. I wanted you to graduate so that it will not affect your studies. So I waited all these years so that you will graduate from the university. And I said, what happened? Then he started a little. He said, it doesn't really matter, because I know he didn't want to blame my mother or anything, but he said, listen, I've been single in my house. I remember when we were in primary school, my mother left my father's room. She said the AC was too cold. My father cannot sleep without AC. He doesn't even cover his body. He's like somebody from Alaska or something. So my mom said it was too cold and she moved to my sister's room, then told my sisters they moved. Our rooms were big, so it was now split, myself and my father had a problem with that, but he didn't say anything. It was like, so if I want to sleep with my wife, I would get up and go and knock on the door of another room. He had a problem, but he didn't say anything. But I think this was the main thing. There were 2 things that hit him. My mother is from a royal family. She was the daughter of a king. And there is this royal arrogance that no matter what you say, they may not argue, but it is what they want to do that they do. And there was this, they were richer than my dad. My dad came from a very humble background. I remember my father used to wash clothes at the university to pay his, he went to the University of Ife. So he rose to the position of a director in the presidency. My father was director of police affairs in the presidency. And from a humble background, he got to that. And he did not forget some insults, from the younger ones. And then what killed him finally was, my mother started attending one church, and in the church, you cannot wear gold, you cannot wear, it was a sin. So even their wedding ring, you have to, fasting 70 days and, all that. So my mother started getting leaner because she was always in that spiritual. Then when they want to go out, my father would do things, maybe they're going to see the president, or, they're going to have some function. And he would look at my mother and say, you can't follow me like that. Why are you, because they can't, the church, they cannot dress in certain ways, it's too flamboyant, you can't wear earrings, and so my dad just said, don't follow me anywhere anymore. So, early in the morning where she has gone to church, and my dad would say, so I would cook so eventually he got a cook and said, you shouldn't even bother. So little things like that made him he detached. And my mother didn't help at all when, my father is not perfect. He has his own. But those were the things that made him leave. He left. So I also come from a broken home. I have a stepbrother who I'm about 20 years older than. I have a stepsister. I have a stepbrother I can give birth to. The fact that I come from a broken home does not mean I should be broken. It is easier to raise strong children than to repair broken men. I cannot be broken because I come from it. My dad, my mom, they made their choices. I made my own choice. You understand? And here I am today telling people and teaching people how to make their choice from a broken home. So this is to tell you that the fact that you come from a broken home is not it's not an excuse to be miserable. It's not an excuse to remain in an abusive marriage. It's not an excuse that people would be, you can tell me I come from a broken, so, as in, it doesn't even, it's now that I even remember. I just learned from the mistakes that religion will not take over my house. I should be able to talk to my wife, and my wife should be able to talk to me. But I have the fondest memory of my father, and my mother is still alive. My father is late, like 15, 18 years now. It is not an excuse. Do you understand? To be miserable. Quickly, the second issue I would talk about is the issue of the age factor. Yes.
Long debates.
Age factor. Now listen, a lot of people marry men who are considerably older than they are. Now, legally, or let me put it in my own opinion, the moment a man is 16 years older than you, he's old enough to be your father. And it's like we are now marrying our parents. The question should be, why is he not with his peers? Why is he not going for people who are mature, but going for, and you see, they are older and they usually go for the younger. They want the naive. They want the 19, 20-year-old, 21. It has been, listen, I did some of the deadliest cases I handled this year was with such age bracket that they now started controlling the woman. They were looking for someone to control. They were looking for someone to keep, like your child. You say, she's like my child. So you say, kneel down there. So you say, don't go out there. You say, you cannot. There is a problem with the generational differences. Now, the women, my wife also was married to a man who was about 12, 13 years older. And you could see the kind of abuse he went through. The problem is that they say, he's mature, he's wiser, he's not like all these young boys that don't know anything, that, they will tell you that he has seen life, he's experienced. But let us see what the definition of age is. The Oxford Dictionary defines age as the length of time a person has lived or a thing has existed. Dictionary.com says age is a period of human life measured by years from birth. That is age. Now let us see what wisdom is. Cambridge Dictionary defines wisdom as the ability to make good judgments based on what you have seen from your experience, or the knowledge and understanding that gives you this ability. Oxford defines wisdom as the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. Merriam-Webster defines wisdom as the ability to discern inner qualities and relationship. Insight. So you see that there is the definition of age has nothing to do with wisdom. The definition of wisdom has nothing to do with age. Now, the wisdom of Solomon has nothing to do with the age of Methuselah. The issue is that wisdom is not in age. A foolish boy will grow to be a foolish man and will grow to be a foolish old man. So, because he is now 80 years old does not automatically make him wise. Some say a fool at 40 is a fool forever. The issue is that wisdom, exposure, knowledge is not in age.